before we look at the actual reports, I wanted to just point out a couple of online resources that are really helpful. A couple of them just went out in the newsletter that I think most of you have received. So there's a reports job aid that talks all about reports in general, and there's a reports filter job aid, both of which are found in the help documents. So if I've already got AggieBudget open, you go to the help documents here in this little navigation pane. And there's all kinds of help documents here. There's this job aid specifically that shows you both the reports job aid and the reports filters job aid. I'm not going to open them and get into it too much, but know that those are there, and they're really useful step-by-step directions on how to navigate more of the functionality aspect. And then there was one other one that I wanted to show you. The AggieBudget Reports Basics video is up on the website, and I thought we would just watch it all together. It's a pretty short clip, and it's very well done. Let's see. So there's quite a few different videos here, but this one.
In this quick video, we'll show you how you can find, open, filter, and export reports using the AggieBudget report library. The report library contains the majority of reports available in AggieBudget and can be opened using the AggieBudget web client and Windows client. If you're in the web client, you can find the reports library by clicking the navigation button, then reports, then clicking report library. Once you're in the report library, you can scroll through the reports list. You can also filter reports by category and subcategory using the buttons here. You can search for reports using the search bar. To clear a search, delete text from the search bar, then click anywhere outside of the search bar. Notice the column titled Client. Any reports labeled as Web can be opened in either the AggieBudget web client, which we're in right now, or the AggieBudget Windows client. Any reports labeled Desktop can only be opened using the AggieBudget Windows client. If you only want to see reports that can be opened in the web client, uncheck the Include Desktop Client Reports box. Question marks in the report library can be clicked to reveal helpful information about the report or area that you're in. Once you find a report you want to open, click the report name. Once a report is open, you can add it or remove it to your favorites list by clicking the star in the upper right. Your favorites list can be found by going back to the navigation menu and clicking Favorites. You can remove a report from your favorites list by hovering over its name and clicking the trash can to its right. If you want to pare down the information you see in a report or change how it's arranged, you can use filters. To open the Filters panel, click the Filters button found in the upper left. Each report has its own set of filters and views that you can change. Most reports have an Export to Excel option that can be found in the upper right. Some reports also offer the Email Report option. You can download a PDF version of a report by opening the Tools panel and clicking Generate PDF. To look at reports in the Windows client, first, open the Windows client. Once the Windows client is open, you can find the reports library by clicking the Reports button, then clicking Report Library. If you tagged a report as a favorite, either in the web client or the Windows client, you can find them in your favorites list by opening the Axiom Assistant and clicking Favorites. You can close the Axiom Assistant to make more space when working with reports. If you have any questions, please contact the AggieBudget Help Desk by email at aggiebudget@ucdavis.edu.
All right, so hopefully that was useful to you. We won't get into these other exciting videos. So I just wanted to point out those couple of items that are out there on the web, on the help documents that can help you with report functionality. But today I didn't want to go over so much of the report functionality as how to really use the reports to enhance what you do and the output that you get out of AggieBudget, because a lot of you have gone through the process in the last couple of months of working to get a lot of information into AggieBudget. Then there's a lot of powerful tools to get information then back out of it that can help you and your managers do their job better. So to start out with, I'm gonna take us to I opened everything up so it's a little bit easier to navigate. So like he showed us, the reports library. The reference reports, I'm just going to breeze through quickly. There's a lot of reference reports here, and they're broken out by assumptions, groupings, and lookups. So assumptions are all of the things that are built into AggieBudget for you so that you don't have to really think about them or worry about them, and they're updated as information is known. So for instance, the merit and range assumptions, they've got all the different bargaining units, the merit and range percentages, and the date that they are effective. So if you're wondering as you're looking in your plan files, you know, what the underlying assumption is that is making the number that you have, that these reference reports are good places to go to find how the number is being calculated. So, you know, if you have, 5 EX employees in your unit and knowing that it's by this percentage, hopefully it should calculate out. And so demystifies it a little bit. Hopefully it's helpful to you, not having to calculate all that stuff yourself to put into your reports, into your budget, sorry. Then there's groupings, which is helpful to understand how AggieBudget data is organized. So how the different budget groups are put together. It's a combination of a lot of different object codes. So there were income ones, and then there's, these operating expense ones. So there's a lot of detail here. And I wanted to show you also the fund categories, because we'll see these a lot in the reports. The bucketing of especially large fund types. So the state funds and tuition, all of these different pieces make up what shows up in state funds and tuition. And I'll show you that in a minute in a report, versus indirect cost return, etc. So this is a really good place to go. Contracts and grants are all of these different pieces to see what falls into each bucket as you're looking at reports. And then lastly, in these is lookups, which again, there's a lot of different ones. Org hierarchy and the org chart. Those are good ways to view your org chart in a little bit of a different way. College of Ag is my default, so it just showed up. But you can drill down and look at different. I think you have to click here. I won't click on individuals, but kind of look at the FISDS report 50 in a different way. AggieBudget can help you do that. So then getting into some actual financial reports, I'd say the best place to start out with if you're really new to AggieBudget is the DS1 crosswalk. I kind of direct people there as the first place to start when they're getting comfortable with AggieBudget data, because it compares familiar information with what you're used to seeing in FISDS to AggieBudget data. So you've got your categories in AggieBudget, like income and recharge. So you've got INC 0 here. And then, for instance, what makes up your uses, everything in the personnel, you've got your different amounts here, so that hopefully, you can kind of use this as your map to orient your brain to what AggieBudget is doing and what it's showing you, and getting a comfort level of the data translation there. The next report I wanted to show you was the org comparison report. I just used training data for this because there was no way to really keep this anonymous. So it's not very interesting data. It's all the same here. But you pull this by org, list out each of the orgs that you want to take a look at, and then you can look at them side by side quickly. It's the most high-level report for an org, where you can see just quickly sources and uses, activity, and their net sources and uses. So, again, this data is not very interesting, but if one of your units was like majorly in deficit compared to all the others, that might be a place that you want to look a little bit more deeply to see, why is this org having trouble? Is there things that we can do about it? Or are there some data entry mistakes there as you're going through your budget process? So this is a good kind of a gut check, high level place to come. And just so you know as well, this is more of a reporting functionality, that anytime you see these blue here, that means it's drillable. You can click into it. And I guess since this is training data, I can probably just click into it and show you how it drills down. And then you can just keep moving around, looking at it by account or sub-account, plan file, fund, however you want to look at it, so you can really investigate the information pretty thoroughly. Going back to this one. So that is the org comparison report. So then if you want to see a more detailed view of a specific org or combination of orgs, I think you can put multiple orgs. Yeah, you can put multiple orgs in this. This is the sources and uses report, which is the most comprehensive report for an individual report. As you can see, it shows you the whole sources and uses with the details. I don't have this broken out by budget groups, but I'll show you that in a minute. So this report in particular is used heavily by us, BIA. And I know the dean's offices are very familiar with having to provide this report and look at this report and talk through it and look at the variances of what is happening compared to what was budgeted. So there's the budget versus actuals there. Looks like maybe, oh, no comments, I guess. And so this is a really valuable view, and it shows, so you go to the filters, I want to look at the budget groups along with it. So I just went to view options, show budget groups, to be able to see a little bit more detail of what goes into, especially the uses, personnel expense, operating expense. Because, for this combination of units, it looks like they're, in a healthy position here. They're in a surplus of $625,000 right now, their net annual sources and uses. They've budgeted, though, a negative $20,000. Again, this is not an actual unit, so this combination makes no sense. But, and then in looking at, okay, well, we've got our actuals here. This is what we've budgeted. What's really different? And that's when you can, kind of look at your variances a bit more and see like, oh, okay, well, that number's quite different. what's going on there? We have budgeted $990,000 there, but we've only spent 236. Maybe there's something coming in, especially because we're at the very end of the year. Maybe something's coming in at the end of the year that we're expecting in period 13, or maybe it just isn't going to happen and we will experience much more of a surplus than we'd anticipated. So this is kind of a good place to look at those variances and understand the difference, and really look at the overall health of an organization from this perspective. So what this report doesn't show is any sort of monthly seasonality or year-over-year trends. So the next report I wanted to show you was kind of a different version of this same report. This one is in the desktop client. So in order to get there, like you saw in the video, you would go to the little rocket ship, go to the Windows client. They've already pulled up the report for us to make it go quicker, but you just go to reports, desktop clients, budget reports, and you get the 3-year sources and uses. And so what this shows is a more high-level view, and I'm sorry I can't make it super easy to see in the screen, but it shows you 3 years of comparison of data for your sources and uses to really get a view of what's happening over time. So I always, being the accountant that I am, start at the bottom of reports and work my way up. So you've got your net annual sources and uses, you know, in 17-18, it shows your 17-18 actuals. You've got a good surplus there, 857. And then there's the budgeted negative 20,000 in 18-19. And then it looks like in 19-20, there's a budgeted deficit of $2.3 million. So that's a very interesting trend. And it would definitely cause me as a manager looking at this report to wonder, you know, hey, what's happening over time? Why did we go from a surplus in 1 year to pretty much break even the next, and then quite a deficit in the upcoming year? And you know, thinking through how to operationally make some changes. And so this is a good high level trending report to look at. And then of course, you know, you can look at this not just at the bottom line, you can look at then the different components that make up the budget and see where it's lacking, you know, where the future budget is greatly decreasing or whatever it is that's causing that. And again, you can look at this with budget groups as well. I just pulled a summary report. The next report I wanted to show you guys was the carry forward report. This one is also in the desktop client, navigating it through the same menu there. So I've got it open here. So this report is very useful. Again, this is something that we provide to campus leadership during the budget process, and we definitely look at this carefully by level 4 org, the colleges and admin units as a whole. But you can look at this at any level of the organization. So again, I've got the combination of orgs here. So there's $10 million of carry forward here. You can see there's 3 years of carry forward data stacked next to each other, so you can see the trend over time, as well as a comparison of current year COBOLs, which is a helpful view to see, you know, how much of the carry forward that's held by that unit is really spoken for. So it looks like they're holding pretty steady in their carry forward. It's up a little this year. The next section shows carry forward as a percentage of expenditures. which I think is useful in looking at how much carry forward is there as a backup. You know, if things were to completely go out the window or whatever, how much carry forward could they burn through before it becomes crisis? That's just kind of a snapshot of that. Then this next section we find very interesting to look at is the breakdown of carry forward by the dean or vice chancellor's office compared to the department, compared to what's held by faculty members. So this is a combination of department orgs. So there's no dean's office line here to show, but it does show the breakdown between department and faculty. And kind of consistent with a lot of what we see across campus is that dean's offices, departments have a lot less than what's held in faculty accounts in carry forward. And then it also shows the COBLs, what's committed, obligated of that carry forward to be spent for specific uses here. So that's a really good check to look at. And I know a lot of people on campus are really looking at carry forward and trying to think about ways to utilize it and not just let it sit there. And then this last section is just looking at FINA or financial aid as it compares to your carry forward numbers. So moving back into the web client, I wanted to show the 12-month projection report. So this, I've seen different units use this in different ways, but especially for a unit that hasn't really gone into AggieBudget yet, this has been a useful view that you can kind of get at a forecast without even putting any data in there. So this shows you your budget. Well, it shows the data by month, and in the same sources and uses breakout that we're seeing a lot in these different reports. And you can do some neat things with this. What it shows is your actuals to date. So, we're really close to the end of the year, so it's got actuals all the way through May. And then you can combine it with a June projection to get a total snapshot for the year. So you can pick a couple different options for this projection month or projection months, depending on what time of year you're looking at this. You can look at current year budget, which I believe is what this one is currently showing. So the monthly budget that you've set, you set almost a year ago, or you can use prior year actuals. And sometimes I think prior year actuals is probably the more useful piece of information at this time, just because it seems like most people aren't budgeting down to the monthly granular level. So I believe this is the version I want to change. I'm still a little rusty with the 1718 with the filters myself, so bear with me, because I want to use prior year actuals as this projection month, particularly because I want to see, if there's any seasonality that is built in, because especially in period 13, sometimes there's some odd transactions that happen that don't happen any other time of the year that really change the outlook of the month, the whole year combined projection. So that's something that you can do, that you can just get a really quick view. This is especially useful, I think, for people who haven't even budgeted at all in AggieBudget yet. You can still use this to kind of get a rough forecast for the remaining part of the year, to get a total of what you kind of expect, gut check, for the end of the year. And then you can compare that to different, whether it be budget for this year or budget for 1920 that you just created, to kind of see how different they are or similar they are. So that's been a pretty useful report, especially for those who haven't been in AggieBudget. Let's see. The next report I wanted to show was the annual budget report. So it actually looks quite similar to this 12-month projection report, but this shows your budget by month for the whole year. This doesn't really bring in actuals in any way. So this is, again, in the sources and uses format. And I don't particularly use this report too much, but I could see this report becoming more and more useful as people adopt more of a monthly mindset to budgeting in AggieBudget. I think a lot of people are just concerned with how does the year overall look. But as people start building in seasonality into their budgets and a little bit more detail that makes the monthly breakdown more meaningful, this report could be really useful, as well as the monthly variance report. Again, I'm not going to show that one just because I think most people are looking by the year at this point. But again, that one would be more useful if people are building in monthly seasonality to their budgets. So it's not too interesting because all the amounts are pretty much the same. I can see this. Somebody budgeted something on a quarterly basis pretty much here. And again, these are all drillable, so you can look in and see what makes up these numbers. All right, then moving on to the commitments report. This is different than the other ones that I've showed you in that it just shows a big stack of your commitments that you've entered in the commitment screen. And this can be really useful, especially if you're dealing with multiple plan files and you've got a lot of data. I know the dean's offices, have piles and piles of commitments that they input and then check in here. So this is a very useful way to look at them comprehensively. And you can look at them across plan files. So, and then once you're in the screen, you can use these filter buttons to get at what you want. So without prying into the data of these units too much, I just looked up the OP tax entries for them. So this data is not super interesting, but you can see there's budget transfers in, budget transfers out, and you can filter by those. You can also, filter by commitment type. Again, it's not super interesting in this data because it's all the same, but there's different categories. And so you can slice and dice this in different ways. And then it shows you the amounts of the commitments and the out years, if you've input any out year data in there. So one thing I always recommend, especially to dean's offices who are looking at the commitments as a whole for their entire organization, their level 4 org, is, a quick check to make sure that you've got everything right, is that your within unit transfers should all add up to 0. Because within unit transfer, it means it's a transfer that's happening within your level 4 org. So one academic department, in CBS is transferring funds to another academic department in CBS. That's a within unit transfer on both sides of that transaction. So they should net each other out and really not affect your sources and uses or any of your the bottom line of the reports. Whereas between unit transfers is a transfer between your unit and another unit like CVS transferring funds to the Office of Research or vice versa. That's a between unit transfer. So that's, you can, create a list of between unit transfers to check, are these really outgoing outside of my unit? And that's really the differentiation there. I know it's challenging to think about that, especially because different people are at different levels of the organization. So as long as it's within your level 4 org, it's a within unit transfer. All right, I think there's a comment. Let me see if there's a question. Question was just, can we change the header so that we can see the report title while we're demonstrating? I actually hid them on purpose so that you wouldn't see the orgs too much, but there is the commitments lookup for each of the reports that we're looking at. It's up here at the top, as well as the orgs that we're looking at. Okay. Blazing through these, no questions so far other than that one. Then the next report is in the desktop client. This is called the data extractor. I didn't actually extract any data. It's just kind of the shell of the report, but this is the most raw data report I think that you can get out of AggieBudget. It's really just a data dump, to be honest. You can see these different headers. It gives you all the data for each line item and the orgs, all this stuff. And the main purpose of this is, if there's a report in AggieBudget, if there is not a report in AggieBudget for what you want to see, what you want to do, this is the quickest way to just get all the data out and just build it yourself. I know one unit in particular has reports that they're used to seeing them a certain way, and they want them that way. And so this is one of the tools that they built to help them still be able to get the reports that they want for their own specific uses out of AggieBudget data, so you don't have to totally recreate the wheel. So that's the data extractor. And then the last report I wanted to show, I'm not going to show you an AggieBudget, but because it shows some pretty unit-specific information, but is the other comp actuals report. And this shows you in your plan files, there's the other comp tab where you're budgeting for groups of people instead of individuals. So as you can see in this picture here, you've got your Unit 18 lecturers, grad students, student assistants, the types of groups of people where the people may come and go frequently even, but the workforce, you pretty much need a certain level at all times to continue operations. So this other comps tab is an attempt to make budgeting for them a little bit easier. And so this other comp actuals report is helpful in just seeing what you are basing your estimates for this year on, looking at actuals from the previous years. And if you can see, there's little plus signs here that show greater detail and actual information for those specific groupings from last year. So that can help you just gauge how much activity there's been in the past. And if nothing's really different than in the previous years, then likely just budgeting what you had in actuals last year is probably close enough. So just wanted to point out that somewhat obscure report